Thank you for tuning in to the best parenting show on the internet, Post Daily Dose.
It's the Post. It's the Post. It's the Post. The Post Daily Dose. It's the Post. It's the Post. It's the Post. The Post Daily Dose. It's the Post. It's the Post.
Hey, good evening, Facebook family. Welcome to another episode of Post Daily Dose with me, your trusted parenting advisor, faithful guide and servant on the healing journey. What's my name? Big Papa Brian+Post. Welcome to the greatest little 10-minute parenting show on the planet. So I put that on my little title from time to time, like Post Daily Dose, the best little 10-minute parenting show on the planet. The greatest little 10-minute parenting show in the universe. I like planet. But then what happens is I end up going longer than 10 minutes. And so then it's like 20 minutes. But not tonight. No longer. 10 minutes. We're going to limit the Post Daily Dose to 10 minutes so it can for sure be the best little 10-minute parenting show on the planet. And tonight we have a question from Melissa. Her 2-year-old is hitting and throwing things, and she doesn't know what to do. So, Melissa, hey there, Stefan. Good evening to you. Hey, Debbie. So, we're going to talk about that. Let's start off. So, Melissa says her 2-year-old daughter was born addicted to opioids, so she was in NICU, which is neonatal intensive care unit, for the first couple weeks before they were able to bring her home. So that right away tells me that your 2-year-old is not 2. She's chronologically 2. She's not emotionally 2. Because that kind of early stress and trauma impairs neurologic development. So it slows down her brain. Hello there, Lisa. And because her brain development is now slowed down, her emotional development is going to be slowed down. So what we now have is a 2-year-old stress-sensitive, fearful child who's probably not 2 at all. She's probably more like a 12-month-old. I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt on that, and I'm going to go with a 12-month-old. Now, here's the problem. At 2 years old, though, the amygdala becomes fully online. Actually, it's at 18 months. The amygdala, your child's brain receptor, and their cortisol, the center of the cortisol, the center of stress in their brain, comes online. So it's fully developed, fully formed. The part of their brain that helps them to start regulating that and modulating that, the hippocampus and the hypothalamus, actually doesn't come online until the 36th month. So then we have an issue. And now the issue is you've got this fully developed amygdala and you have this underdeveloped regulatory system in your brain, in your child's brain. Now, because of the early stress and the trauma, guess what? The amygdala becomes hyper-developed. And when the amygdala becomes hyper-developed, it becomes more sensitive. So she has an overdeveloped amygdala. So she has an overdeveloped stress and fear receptor and an underdeveloped hippocampus and hypothalamus. And so you have to take that in mind. And remember, I like to make these things, hey Sylvia, make these things really simple. Stress, when we stress, we regress. When we stress, we regress. And in times of stress, our thinking becomes confused and distorted and our short-term memory suppressed. She's not even at that place, right? So when she's stressed, her thinking really gets confused and distorted because she's not even at a place to begin to think clearly. Like, we're operating at 2, we're really emotionally operating at 12 months, and we've got a lot of trauma, and now we know there's opioids, in the prenatal stage. That tells us that there's probably all kinds of, the stuff we don't know about the conception to 9-month period of time. So that's all very pre-verbal, but it's all very active in her brainstem. And when she hits 2 and the amygdala comes fully online, then actually that pre-verbal memory and that pre-verbal experience gets stirred up even more. So here's what you're encountering. Your child has a very sensitive window of tolerance. So they have a very sensitive stress response system, essentially. So her window of tolerance for how much stress she can handle is very small. And when she exhausts that window of tolerance, when she reaches it, when it gets too small or when she goes outside of it, then what happens is everything she sees becomes a threat to her. Everything becomes becomes a monster. And so then what she does is she throws things because she has no impulse control right now because her amygdala is overdeveloped and her hippocampus and her hypothalamus is underdeveloped. Melissa says in the question that she's trying to respond in the most loving way. What is that? But she's not sure she's doing it right. So here's the thing. I don't even want you to worry about responding in a loving way. Don't put that kind of pressure on you. I want you to attend to a 12-month-old. So instead of looking at your child like she's 2, I want you to look at her like she's 12 months old. She's an infant and she's stress sensitive and easily fearful. I want you to keep those 2 things in mind. So very important. So you're not even looking at her as she's 2. You're looking at her like she's 12 months again. And she is stress sensitive and easily fearful. So from that perspective, what would you do? Especially when it comes to groups, because you're going to notice that the times when she's most likely to hit or the time she's most likely to throw things at other people is that when there's a lot of activity going around. Well, what does a lot of activity usually imply? It implies a lot of sensory overwhelm. Now, some of you who have older children, here's what I want to throw at you. So I want you to make this, I want this to really hit home for you. Her 2-year-old is the same child you're dealing with your 12-year-old. So your 12-year-old could be chronologically 12, but when he stresses, he regresses, and he's a 2-year-old. Most aggressiveness, most aggressive behaviors that come from children, in addition to the hyperactivity stuff, comes from the 2-year emotional stage of development. So when you're dealing with a child who is aggressive and you have an older child, it's because they're regressing to about that 2-year stage. Now with Melissa's child, she's a little bit younger than that. She's just coming at 2. So a lot of her development, her physical development, her emotional development, her cognitive development, that's still really coming online. So her throwing things, her hitting at people, that's all very impulse driven, and it's driven from her amygdala. She really has very little control over that. So very little control over that. So here's the thing I want you to keep in mind is that you're still helping her to form that regulatory part of who she is. I keep getting calls this evening. Zoom. Okay. So you're still helping her to form that regulatory part of who she is. And that's where the parents become an effective hippocampal, hypothalamic extension for your child. She's not yet at the ability to be able to calm and regulate herself. This is what most of society loses about a 2-year-old. When you're 2, you're not even at the 36-month period of time. It takes your brain until you're 36 months with normal healthy development to come online and start to be able to effectively begin regulating stress and releasing oxytocin effectively and efficiently. We know oxytocin is the brain's anti-stress hormone. That's a normal development. What if your child, like Melissa's child, had a questionable preverbal stage for 0 to 9, and then the first 2 weeks of her life were spent in neonatal intensive care unit where there's, she's there by herself probably, and there's probably not a lot of holding going on, and there's just a lot of, in a very important stage in her development, she's going through withdrawal, so there's pain. So her early life imprints are about stress and overwhelm and fear, and oh my gosh, it's just how being in the world just doesn't feel very good. So she's not even at the place to where she can start controlling herself. So what that means for you, Melissa, and for your husband, is that you guys have to contain her more. So I use containment in 2 ways. I use containment in the physical environment and in the emotional environment. So containment in the physical environment is reducing the space that you have to play around. So if she's with other kids, I wouldn't let her play too far away from you with other children, because she's going to get overwhelmed too easily. Even if all the other little kids are in the little room and they're all playing little balls, she's not there yet. Stay close. And then I would say, look at her window of tolerance for how long she can play before she gets overwhelmed by herself. She probably can't play very long. Another thing I heard you say, Melissa, is that you'll play with her, and then after you stop playing with her, she gets really upset. Well, it's not that she's getting upset. Remember, guys, there are two primary emotions. This is so important to remember with a 2-year-old. If you can gain this, Melissa, right now while she's this age, it's gonna be relationship transformative. There's two primary emotions, love and fear. Anything you see as anger is stemming from fear. So when you're playing with her and she's feeling really good and she's feeling really regulated, and then you get up and leave, it is absolutely normal for her to feel stressed and overwhelmed. And if she has a very sensitive amygdala, she's going to feel more overwhelmed than she would have ordinarily. So that's why she's not quite at that place to be able to be okay with you getting up and leaving. And so what you have to do in that situation is you have to say to her, honey, you get her going on something and say, Mama's going to go over here and I'll be right back. And so then you get her playing on something, then you go away, but then you have to come back and check in, right? Because that's just the realities of having a 2-year-old. And I think you guys might have a little guy as well. So what I'm feeling and sensing is that you probably have quite a load on your shoulders with a couple of special needs children. And just because your daughter may not look special needs, she very much is special needs. And she's probably going to be special needs for quite a while. So just take that perspective, that sensitivity, keep that in mind. There's only two primary emotions, love and fear. She's not angry. She's operating from fear. And that you have to continue to provide that regulatory development, that oxytocin for her. So lots of holding, more bottle feeding, more hand feeding, more holding, more rocking. Just keep developing, keep nurturing that regulatory system, keep giving her that oxytocin, and she's going to develop more and more, and that impulse control will lessen more and more as that oxytocin picks up. So I hope that's helpful. Remember, in any given situation, we always have two choices. We can continue to react from the past imprints of overwhelm and stress and shock, or we can stop. We can take 3 to 10 deep breaths, and we can choose love. And let me tell you something. There's no parent that is consistently tuning in to Post Daily Dose of Big Papa should be struggling for a prolonged period of time. All you've got to do is go to newparentingrevolution.com, and you can join our private membership. We have a private Facebook group. You can ask me questions all day long. I'll respond to you as often as possible. We will hop on the phone if we need to. And then I have a full course. There's probably 70 hours of educational content that you can learn and you can study at your own pace. Just go to newparentingrevolution.com. And for those of you therapists, I'm going to be in Beverly Hills, Southern California in May. It's coming up. It's going to be a very small group, 1-day intensive trauma training, and I'm looking for one therapist who wants to really dig deep with me. So go to BeverlyHillsTraumaTraining.com. Big Papa loves you. I pray for you every night. God bless you, and we will see you tomorrow.